Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're going to talk about artificial general intelligence. Now, I don't know that everybody knows exactly what that is. So maybe, Greg, since you're the tech guy, why don't you explain that to us?
All right, so today's artificial intelligence, you can almost think as starting to match the function of individual brain regions, like a module for vision, a module for speech. By contrast, so artificial general intelligence is going to be something much more powerful. It's going to be a system that can actually understand an entire domain of study, can actually understand multiple domains, integrate information between them, and actually discover new knowledge, work with humans to solve global scale challenges that we don't have solutions for.
And that's very much the mission of OpenAI, to get to that point.
And it's not just to get there, it's to make sure that it really benefits not just a small set of people, but all of humanity.
Got it. Now, to do that, you first set up a nonprofit organization. And then earlier this year, you switched to a for-profit, but with capped returns for the first-round investors. Why did you do that?
Yeah, the way that we started OpenAI was we had this mission. We wanted AGI, artificial general intelligence, to benefit everyone. And so we started in the most obvious way as a nonprofit. But one thing we found as we started to make progress, as we really tried to be at the cutting edge and make AI just continually do impossible things, is that it's actually a very expensive endeavor. That, just like in physics, you got to build these massive particle accelerators. In AI, we have to build these massive supercomputers. And so we needed to be able to raise investment capital, but still stay true to the mission. And so we ended up designing a structure that is neither exactly a for-profit nor a nonprofit, but something where we can take investment capital, and if we succeed in creating an unprecedented amount of value, that we only owe a fixed return to those investors and to employees who have equity, and everything else is owned by the nonprofit to benefit everyone.
Right. And that return is capped at 100x?
So that's true for the first round of investment. That you can almost think of it as we make progress, that future investors are willing to come in for a lower multiple.
Sure. 100x is that's a lot.
Not for a startup investor in sort of a first round.
Okay.
We tried to think about what a good startup investment in sort of our seed round would be, and then when we did it with Microsoft, we did it at sort of a lower multiple to model the progress. But our goal is to have returns to investors like a good startup investment, but not sort of unprecedentedly good.
Has moving to this model changed how you do your research, how you do your business?
Not at all. In spirit, we still view ourselves as working for the world, but I think you have to sort of play the field as it lies, and we just need so much capital to do our work. I think we'll need more capital than any nonprofit has ever raised, probably. And so this was sort of a reflection of reality, but we put a year's worth of work into designing a new structure to let us keep our mission and still be able to succeed, get the capital we need to succeed.
So even as a for-profit, you can still, did you say work for the world? Is that how you describe it?
A cap profit. We're an LLC, we're not a standard thing. We don't have traditional shareholders. We have documents that say in very clear words at the top in a purple box that this is not a standard investment. We can choose to make it worth nothing at any point if we need to. It's super speculative. But I think the technology we're working on has so much promise if it works, if we're successful in our mission, that it's not going to be a particularly difficult thing for us to provide a great return to our investors and also unprecedented value to the world.
There's a big if there in, though, if it works, right? Where do you put your chances of actually making AGI, or you being the first one to make AGI work, or at all?
If you ask a typical startup what their chances are of success, I think that you don't start on these endeavors because they're certain. You embark on them because they're important.
But you've got a technical challenge that still needs to be solved. You're not just building a social network app that maybe gets users or not.
Absolutely. So I think that AGI is something where it's just there's been 60 years worth of debate on when this thing's going to come, and there were people in the 80s and people in the 90s who thought that it was just around the corner. And I think it might still be true that it's just around the corner. I think we can't rule it out. But I think one thing that's also really important is that along the way to AGI, it's not quite like making a singular breakthrough and either you got it or you don't. That we're producing these super valuable AI technologies that are becoming more and more powerful. And so I think that actually the upside of if we truly succeed in the mission, we build this kind of system that we're talking about, we make it benefit everyone, that's going to be something on the order of the Industrial Revolution. And if we fail in that, then we'll just have created really amazing AI technologies that can still be used to benefit the world.
I think it's always, maybe we'll succeed, maybe we won't. Certainly we have an enormously difficult challenge in front of us. But I was reflecting just now, on January of 2016, OpenAI started in Greg's apartment. I was mostly working at YC at the time, but I came by a few days, and it was like, I don't know, 8 people sitting around a kitchen table.
Yep.
And I remember talking about what we thought we'd be capable of over the next, let's say, 3 years. And that so badly undershot what 3 years later we're actually capable of, that I suspect, in the way that humans are bad at estimating exponential curves, we still are underestimating what we'll accomplish in the next 3 years. I think we have technology that learns. This is this amazing, amazing secret in the world. That's what makes humans special. And we figured out how to do it. Like, that's like figuring out how to go to the moon. And we're able to keep driving that forward. And every year, I think the field is doing things that experts say are difficult or impossible. And like recursively defined, if that keeps going, we'll get very far.
Is that why you decided to go to OpenAI after Y Combinator?
Yeah, my general strategy is, if you don't know the most important thing to work on, you should work on many things and take a portfolio strategy. And I love YC. It was a great way to work on many, many things. But once you identify the one most important thing, and power laws being what they are, you should just go try to work as hard as you can on that. And I think expected value of us succeeding this is by far the most important thing I can imagine working on.
What's the ideal outcome for OpenAI?
Well, the ideal outcome is that we succeed at the mission. So you can imagine what we're really trying to do right now is trying to continually be at the cutting edge of making AI do impossible things, all the way up to building a system that can really be an artificial general intelligence. And it's not just about then, again, it's about actually applying this to these global scale challenges that right now seems like might just be out of our reach. Think about climate change, right? There are just so many aspects of that problem that are super hard, and that you think about technological approaches, think about societal and incentive problems, and if we can actually have tools that can work with humans that can really help us figure out how to tackle that, that's what we really want to be able to accomplish.
But you're not doing any commercial products yet.
That's
You're
right.
just doing research at this point, and it's very deliberate.
Yeah, so that's very important, right? The way to think about it is that the quote of that one of the best ways of doing a startup is you just find an exponential and you ride it. So it turns out that right now we are on this insane exponential of AI progress. You can actually look at it as driven by the amount of computational power that underlies these models, which has been increasing about 5 times faster than Moore's law for the past 6 or 7 years, which is just this really unprecedented amount of
People
progress.
don't get that. Intuition on that breaks down.
That's right. It just totally breaks down, right? So I guess one way to think about it is that it's almost like if your phone battery lasted for 1 day, you wake up 5 years later, it lasts for 800 years, and then you wait 5 more years, it lasts for 100 million years. That's the kind of progress we're seeing on the computational power. And so that I think for us, that the most important thing is to always be at that cutting edge.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying it's basically a waste of time for you to lock yourself into the state of technology right now?
Yeah, I think that it's not a waste, because I think that there's so much good applications. And actually, one upside of this Microsoft deal is that it's not just an investment; it's also a partnership. And we have an arrangement where if we choose to license technology, that they're actually super excited to commercialize it, put it into Microsoft products. And that's one way that we can both continue to fund the research, but also get some of these breakthroughs to actually make it out into the world.
Sure. Let's talk about that Microsoft deal for a second, because you took $1 billion from Microsoft. I think there was some confusion about what that actually meant, the $1 billion. Can you just explain what kind of deal this is? It's not just Azure credits, right?
No, it's cash.
We'll
spend a lot on Azure, but it's in cash, yeah.
Right. So what is Microsoft getting for that?
Yeah. So first, again, there's just an investment, so that they now
Sure.
hold some of the instrument. But there's secondly this partnership. So we'll be running all of our things on Azure, and that we're working together to build
Exclusively.
That's right. That's right. And that we're working together to build these massive supercomputers and push forward AI technology. And I think that people in the world who use Azure are going to see that platform continue to just get better and better for AI development.
Mm-hmm.
If Microsoft can collaborate with us, and we can build an amazing supercomputer to train these models on, that clearly benefits us. We really need that, and Microsoft's a great partner to build it. but that should eventually benefit all Azure customers with what they learn from it.
Why lock yourself into Azure, though?
Well, it's logistically much easier for us to be on one platform.
Okay.
And we need, we're sort of interested in particular supercomputers that work for our workloads. And, we sort of talk to all of the players, and I think this already is off to a really good start.
And just as some historical context, we've actually used every major cloud plus our own physical hardware over the course of OpenAI. So we've kind of taken a look at everything that's out there.
All right. So you said you talked to all the players. Would you have taken the same deal from Google?
A thing that's particularly good about Microsoft is the degree to which they're mission aligned with us. It's hard to find a partner that can, really scale with us on the capital side over the coming years, have the capability to build the computing infrastructure we need, and have a super aligned vision for us on the mission. And so we're super happy we found that at Microsoft.
And I think it's hard to underemphasize how important that mission alignment is for investors. Like, as we said at the beginning, we have a very atypical structure. We have a very atypical mission. The idea that we might actually need to serve the world over serving investors, it's not something that most investors are willing to sign up for. But I think to Microsoft's credit, I think this is actually super aligned with their corporate mission.
Because the overall mission of Microsoft is also to build AI for the greater good of humanity?
Well, so the overall mission of Microsoft actually is to empower, I might not get this word for word, but to empower every organization and individual to achieve more. And the actual individuals at the top who run the company, I think, are super aligned with this mission of trying to make sure that artificial intelligence and general intelligence happens in a way that benefits everyone.
I think I've heard Satya say the same words.
That's right.
You're pretty close there.
Satya genuinely believes that AI will be like the most important trend for Microsoft to get right in the coming decade. And he really thinks like we do about how to distribute the benefits.
Sure. Now, you've talked about how much money it takes to just run the models and build the models, and you've got the money now. Let's talk a little bit about what you're building right now. And you've talked about the money, that stuff is done. Let's talk about the multi-agent model you showed, and maybe we can put the video up on screen of the work you just showed. I think it was last week?
Yeah, it was a week or two ago. So what we did is we trained some AIs to play hide and seek. And what they learned was the sequence of strategies and counter strategies. Right?
Maybe we can loop that video a couple of times since I think it just went away.
Yep. So at first they just learned to hide in a room and put some boxes in there, and then they learned that there are these ramps that the seekers could use to jump over the walls, and eventually they got better and better and got to the point that actually they figured out how to break the physics. So what we're actually seeing here is one of the seekers figures out that it can actually break the physics of the simulation in order to kind of have the ultimate out catting and mousing, and can actually get to where the little blue guys are hiding in the corner. I think there's a second one too of these unconventional strategies that we didn't know about. There should be a second video which hopefully we can put up, where these seekers learned, hey, I can box myself in, and the hiders learned they could box themselves in. The seekers learned, hey, I can actually use the physics of this world to get on top of this box and surf my way into the shelter. And so I think the thing that's really exciting about this is that we kind of have this open world where you have this very evolutionary process, right? We know that evolution is the thing that made us smart, and there's a question that people have had for a very long time of, can you use it to make AI smart? And this kind of shows that, yeah, you can actually even have them discover strategies and ways of exploiting your physics that humans couldn't have imagined. And I think this actually really showcases like why we want to build these systems at all, right? We really want to keep pushing the intelligence. We want to make the world more open, have more diversity of things these things can do, and then you can actually have them discover things that we didn't know were possible.
Yeah, I think in a very simple environment, you can have incredibly complex behavior emerge just because of agents having to outsmart each other. If you think about humans, we don't need. Evolution did not give us such giant energy and efficient brains because they help us outrun a lion or run down an antelope. We have them to deal with each other. And similarly, most of the complexity in that environment comes from the agents having to deal with each other, interact with each other, cooperate with each other. And I think that actually gives me a lot of optimism about a path to intelligence is if you imagine what we just showed, on this exponential ramp of sort of 8x improvement per year as the models get smarter and smarter, I think you can imagine enormously complex behavior coming, new knowledge discovery coming that we ourselves didn't have from this multi-agent strategy.
They're exploiting basically a glitch in the setup. Is that what's happening? And they figured out a way to do that?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
Well, so I think it's an interesting thing, right? That I think ultimately what we want are AIs that can work with us to help us solve problems we can't. Right? Why do we want tools at all? Right? Is to extend what humans can do. So I think there's real promise there. But I think it also highlights the fact that, we're going to have to really think about as these systems come into society, you don't want your self-driving car to go and do some crazy strategy that maybe has some bad externalities. And so part of what we work on, it's not just the capabilities, it's also safety. It's also figuring out how do we make these systems actually do what humans want, be aligned with our values. And I think that's really crucial.
Getting the systems to do what we want, not what we try to say, I think will be increasingly important.
Interesting.
And I actually think that there's a lot of people out there who I think this problem is intractable. Like, how are you ever supposed to write down the reward function for humanity? How are you supposed to write down what you want?
You can learn it.
Exactly. And this, I think, is the really key insight, that we already have technology that can learn super well all of these problems and solutions that humans can't specify, and we're trying to do the exact same thing with what do humans want.
Mm-hmm. Some people would be nervous about that.
And I mean, tell me more about why.
Just in terms of, you're training these, you may have good intentions training these models, right? Somebody else may say the reward model is very different.
So this, I think, is actually, all the things we've been talking about to date have been these technical problems, the question of capital, the question of how you build these computers. I think this is actually the most important question, right? Let's say you can really succeed and build these super powerful systems. What values are in there? Mm-hmm. Whose values are they? We as humanity, we're not very good at agreeing on a global value system. And I think that this is also a super important challenge. And we actually have a policy team at OpenAI whose job it is just to think about this.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any results from that? How do you approach that? Yeah.
I think there are some things that most of humanity agrees on as values, and then there's a few big spectrums in sort of world philosophies. Maybe you could talk about like individualism versus collectivism is one big one. How we start a process now about a global discussion about what deployment of advanced AI is going to look like. We've really turned our attention to that given the acceleration of our results. We just this year put a team on that for the first time, saying like, this sounds a little premature, but better to be a little early than a little late. But I think what it's going to come down to is step one is just sort of a global discussion, which has not even really been started. I think as people start to take this seriously, as the non-tech world starts to take this seriously, the first stage is just a discussion about what kind of world we want on the other side.
Sure.
And I think one really key part of that is it's not just a Silicon Valley problem, right? I think that so far, Silicon Valley, I think, has kind of started to really isolate itself off. And I think that's causing a lot of issues. And for the most powerful technology ever, we just got to really be able to get global engagement.
Sure. In part, I'm asking because you had this other result recently, GPT-2. It's a model that can generate text based on a prompt like an undergraduate would get, basically, in an English class. And you decided to withhold some of those results, at least the models, for a while, and roll this out in a staged fashion because you thought the model was too good?
Yeah, so this is a result that is just like 5 years ahead of where we thought we were going to get it. That was, we generated this model that we just trained it by looking at internet text, and you could ask it to write an essay on, say, why recycling is bad for the world, and it came up with this great argument of why are we generating so much waste in the first place? Like, we're just masking the symptoms with recycling, and we had never seen anything like it. And so everyone who looked at it within OpenAI thought that the implications were totally obvious, but we couldn't agree on exactly what those implications were. Some people thought it was obviously totally benign. People use it to generate books and things like that. Other people thought that it could potentially be used for malicious purposes. For example, generating fake news at massively unprecedented scale. And when we started this company trying to make AGI benefit everyone, we always knew that not publishing everything would be part of that. The day would come, and we knew it was super important to be a year too early rather than a year too late. And so we might have been a year too early, but we decided to do a staged release of rolling out bigger and bigger versions rather than everything at once.
Why the staged release? So some people accuse you, oh, this is just a publicity stunt. They want to show off. We're so good, our stuff is already dangerous, so we can't just show it. But why do this staged release?
We didn't say that it's dangerous. We said it might be. We said we're not sure.
Fair.
And we said it's, this is like a good time for a practice run at a minimum, or maybe like actually someone will misuse it. It certainly got reported as us saying this is too dangerous, but we definitely never said that.
Fake news?
Fake news.
Yeah. Your AI wrote that.
Exactly.
So I think what we said is like, publication norms deserve a conversation, and that I think we'll stand by very strongly.
Yep. And I think that worked. We're now at a stage where people have, there's really this industry working group that's thinking about these problems, and that we've seen various people replicate the model, but also hold it back. Because it's, and to some extent, it's not about GPT-2. It's about scaling this model up.
GPT-20.
Exactly.
GPT-20 will be dangerous, or will be capable of misuse.
That's right. And so I think that it's so important that you have the norms in place. I'm actually kind of glad that we took a lot of anger and ridicule and whatever emotions people wanted to pour our way. The funny thing is there's also a lot of support and people who, it's funny, I tweeted something about that recycling thing, and someone replied to that and got a whole lot of likes saying, like, I can't believe these people aren't taking this seriously. Why do they think this is funny? And I looked at that and I was like, exactly why we're taking this seriously.
Got it. When are you going to roll out the full model? When are you going to show that to the world?
So, my expectation, if everything goes, if nothing crazy happens, is within the next couple months. If you look at the history of our ramp, that we basically release the next version, get some data, see how people are using it, and then go from there.
And internally, you already have GPT-10 that you're not showing yet?
We do not comment on unreleased projects.
3, 4?
Something
Nothing?
like that.
All right. All of this work you've been doing on the multi-agent, the GPT, it's all still within not the AGI realm. How does this work get you there? Yeah, so the way that we think about progress, right? I think the way that sort of in science you normally think about your progress is about ideas. Right, that you really are building up this ladder of, okay, I came up with this theory that explains these phenomena and simplifies everything, and now I can make the next theory, and eventually you get to whatever applications you want. The way that we think about AI, I think we take much more of almost a startup mindset to it, is to think about capability. We think of it as, can we solve this super hard challenge? And in doing so, we think we'll generate these general purpose methods that can be reused elsewhere. And so, for example, we built a system that beat the world champions at the complex video game Dota 2. We actually took that exact same training system, pointed it at robotics to solve this robotic hand problem that no one had been able to solve. And so I think the way that I think about it is, yeah, for sure, everything we generate still has limitations, but somehow they're becoming more powerful. They're able to do things that are years ahead of when we thought would be possible. And as long as we're on that ramp, then I think we're being successful. Do you think that's enough, just making the current methods better, or do you need a completely new technology at some point? So I think there's only one way to find out. Okay. Like our hope, and honestly our hope with Dota was that we would find our current methods would hit a wall. We'd scale everything up, we'd push it as far as we could, and it just wouldn't do it. And that, I think, is the current unsolved challenge in AI, is trying to find a real task that we just can't solve through pushing all existing methods.
We have to fail at something to know what to do next. But I would say if you look at capabilities, stuff like Dota, the multi-agent, the robot, given a goal and a simulator, we can solve that. Mm-hmm. And if you look at stuff like GPT-2, given a massive information, we can understand it. And those are two pretty powerful capabilities towards intelligence.
That's right. Now, there's something that's funny about GPT-2, is GPT-2 is terrible at math. You ask it to add some numbers, it just starts making stuff up. Because the data you fed it just has nothing to do with math. Exactly, right? And maybe if you just feed some data that has to do with math, it'll work. But maybe we're missing reasoning. Maybe that's something that's not there. And so right now, we don't really know that answer. And that's one thing that we're really trying to discover. Sure. It can write a book at this point. That's right. Something, right? Yeah. So I think maybe a good thing to wrap it up is I brought on stage this book. It's not written by a human. This was written by GPT-2 and illustrated by a human, but you can kind of look through it and see if I can get it in the camera properly. and you can kind of see that it's got lots of nice game mechanics for this RPG game that it wrote. It's got lots of nice lists of different elves and items and things like that. And I think that this shows you why these technologies are amazing today, is that you can actually work with them in order to build artifacts or to build creative things that humans wouldn't be able to do on their own.
So that AI is a bit of a nerd.
Turns out.
What's next? What's the next big step you're expecting to see?
Continue the ramp. I think that reasoning is a good example of a technology that no one's ever seen. I think that GPT-2 is on the cusp of having machines that we can actually talk to and can understand us, but we're not quite there. And I think that there's work that we and everyone else in the field are trying to do to get there.
Got it. You happy about your move?
Yes.
Good. I'm happy about the interview. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.